Right. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Colleen McCaughey. I'm part of the grants management team here at the Cleveland Foundation. We'll begin by just doing a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're talking about, who we are, your resources here. We'll go through the online registration portal, which is the first step to applying for a grant. We'll talk about the Cleveland Foundation's general inquiry process, which is a different process. But if you are eligible to apply, we wanted to make sure that you know how to do that and what that process might look like. Then we'll go ahead and pivot over to what we're here today to talk about, which is the criminal legal reform application. We'll go through that in detail. And then Katrice will lead us through strategy overview, the review process and timing, and then we'll leave some area for Q&A at the end. So once again, these are your contacts, Katrice and myself. Programmatic questions, Katrice can field. If you have any technical questions about using the online portal, accessing the application, things like that, grants management would be more than happy to assist. All right. If your organization is eligible to apply for a grant, the first step is to register your organization through our online portal. Eligibility requirements to apply for a grant from the Cleveland Foundation include organizations that serve Cuyahoga, Lake, or Geauga counties that have a 501c3 tax-exempt status from the IRS. Organizations who do not hold a tax-exempt status may choose to partner with a fiscal agent who can complete an application on their behalf. To begin your registration, you will navigate to the Cleveland Foundation website, hover over Grants and Programs, and scroll down to Apply for a Grant in that drop-down menu, circle here. On that page, scroll down to numbers 2 and 3. Pause here. Section 2 gives you the opportunity to request login credentials from the Cleveland Foundation. If you have never applied for a Cleveland Foundation grant before, this is your first stop. Please request these credentials as soon as possible. Once you receive your credentials, scroll down to number 3 and begin the application process. Enter your credentials under Registered Users. Please note that the Cleveland Foundation now uses multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for increased security. MFA verification is conducted via phone and email. So you'll need a phone number or an email address that can receive a code that you can then type in to your MFA verification. If you have any issues with MFA verification, there is a link on this page that you'll see. You can click to request assistance. You'll need to complete a brief form to log this information, and grants management will assist you in getting logged in. Once you've successfully logged in with your login ID, password, and multi-factor authentication code, you will see your homepage. Before beginning your application, please complete or update the organization profile located on the left-hand side of the screen. Once your organization profile is complete, select Apply for a Grant on the left-hand side menu. This first section is an overview of completing a general inquiry, which eligible organizations can complete at any time throughout the year. If you're applying for a general inquiry rather than the criminal legal reform application, scroll down and click on Apply General Inquiry to begin. After answering a few short questions to verify eligibility and providing a title for your project, you may begin your inquiry. Click on each section to complete the inquiry. When you have completed all questions, click Next. Click Submit Inquiry to complete your application. You will receive an automated email when your inquiry has been successfully submitted. You also have the option to view or print a PDF for your records. Now, in this next section, we will return to applying for the criminal legal reform application. If you are applying to the criminal legal reform application, return to the Apply for a Grant page and scroll down to Criminal Justice Reform to begin your application, circled on this page. Review the program description and eligibility requirements. Once you have reviewed this information, type in your project title in the text box and click Start Application at the bottom of the screen. Once you complete all sections, you will be redirected to the application summary page. A green checkbox will appear next to completed sections. If you see a red exclamation point instead, there is missing information within that section. You can preview a PDF of your application on this page for review. You will see that there is currently no Submit button. Click on Next to proceed. Once you have completed the application questions and clicked Next, the Submit button will appear on the application summary page. Your application is not received until you click the Submit button. You will receive an automated email when your application is successfully submitted. I'm going to turn it back over to Katrice, who will go over some strategy overview.
Thank you, Colleen. I just wanted to make a quick note that the application deadline is actually May 5th at 11:59 p.m. and we'll make sure to correct that on the website. So I didn't want any confusion about that deadline. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to provide a quick overview of our policy priorities for the foundation. Again, applicants are not restricted to these priorities. You can choose anything within the criminal legal reform areas, whether that be, voter registration for individuals who have criminal convictions to increase their civic participation, working with youth in terms of teaching them about democracy, especially if they're formerly incarcerated youth, or teaching them about how to advocate for reforms in the juvenile system. It can also be base building, organizing, a range of things. I think the sky is not limited in terms of what that includes, but for the foundation, our 4 policy priorities are looking at supporting strategy that promotes racial and income equity within the pretrial detention population, i.e. not using a monetary-based system to unnecessarily incarcerate someone during pretrial detention, especially if they do not pose a risk to public safety. Our second policy priority focuses on youth or juvenile justice, so that we're looking at community-based alternatives to helping youth versus using incarceration as the default. When we see youth committing community harm or behaviors that our society does not approve of, we don't always have to incarcerate, and so we need to think of other solutions. The third priority is looking at systems alignment and connectivity between pretrial services and mental health and behavioral health response systems. Again, our response to people who have a mental or behavioral health crisis is to have a police response or have a carceral response. But if we can support those community-based options, especially for people in crisis or for people who just really need additional support, then we should be doing that. And then also looking at how we can use policy advocacy and legislative efforts for people who are reintegrating back into our community. So that involves looking at legislative efforts to reduce the stigma that individuals face when they're trying to access housing, jobs, or education, not putting restrictions on where folks can work just because of their criminal history, and making those restrictions overly broad and not tailored to the harm. And then also making sure that we also have things in our state budget that support people who are transitioning, and so on and so forth. So those are our priorities and that the foundation is focusing on, but we do encourage applicants to consider a range of things that is going to shift the criminal legal system away from mass incarceration. Next slide. So our theory of change is kind of built on the movement ecology model, where there are foundations focus on different things. So some may focus on what we call personal transformation, or that may be known to you as direct service or programming. So providing direct services to individuals so that it allows them to transform and to become stable. Others look at, when we see the status quo, how do we create alternatives to our present institutions and cultures that may commit community harm and are not tailored to what our community needs in terms of healing and restoration. And then also a third theory of change is changing dominant institutions in terms of reforming the structures that shape our lives and the status quo. So looking at our civic and elected leaders, or even administrative officials who may participate within the criminal legal system, or insert whatever other system, is being able to shift their thinking about what solutions they use to address certain harms. So here at the foundation, we're really looking at changing the dominant institutions. Again, not having a bloated jail or prison system where we're incarcerating everyone, because that is not an effective means either for helping those individuals, helping even victims, or helping our society. And also looking at alternatives and using policy advocacy and systems change to be able to, again, shift the narrative thinking around how we deal with those. Next slide. So the purpose of this RFP is we really want to direct resources to community and grassroots organizations, because we recognize that change is not just a top-down approach, it's also bottom-up, where residents like yourselves, or organizations and agencies, coalitions and networks, are working together and building that support to engage those in other sectors of the community to advocate for the changes that we want to see. So we want to provide those direct services, and the grant, if it awarded, is flexible in that it can be used for specific base building, it can be used for operational support, it can be used for capacity building, again, to allow community and grassroots organizations that we know tend to be smaller, but need to have more nimble funding to be able to respond to these different things. And then also we want the grant dollars to assist those organizations and leaders who may be justice or criminally legally involved, so that they also have the opportunity to engage in social change and advocacy, because we know that not everyone has the luxury to do this full time. But if your organization is helping to train some of those leaders, or you're actively involving them as well, we want to be able to support that initiative. Next slide. And so again, just the eligibility criteria. At the foundation, we can only give to a 501c3 tax exempt status. If you don't have that status, you will need to find a fiscal sponsor who has that. And so what you'll need to do is, whatever the relationship is between you and your fiscal sponsor, is provide them with the information so that they can fill out the application and submit it by the May 5th deadline. The 1.5 million operating budget is applicable to who is ultimately receiving the grant. That's not applicable to the fiscal sponsor. So we just want to make that clear. And you must be based in a predominantly working Cuyahoga, Lake, or Geauga counties, because again, that is our footprint. And we're focusing on reforming the criminal legal system, which we defined on our the blog post that was posted as the police, courts, and correctional institutions, as well as the different actors involved in that. So that can be bail bondsmen, that can be administrative staff, that can be parole, probation. It's a wide gamut of all who are involved in that system and its effects on the community. Next slide. And again, I kind of alluded to this, but this is not our priority. Is looking at community members who are part of a criminal, legal, or social justice focused group, network, or coalition. Also those coalitions, agencies, and groups who include people with direct lived experience. So both folks who have been in the system or their family or friends, and as well as Black-led organizations. These are priorities, but these are not exclusionary, right? So this, you don't have to be one of these to be eligible to apply, but we do want to highlight that we think having these kinds of individuals and coalitions is really important for the work around criminal legal reform. Next slide. And then we again have 2 grant amounts. We have up to 50,000 and 5 grants at 50,000 and 10 grants at 25,000. These are again micro grants because it's meant to support smaller organizations to allow you to do the work that you're doing in the community, and also again to be flexible in that regard. And so we have some eligibility criteria for the 50 and 25 grant to kind of help guide you about what is most appropriate for your organization. Next slide. And so you can refer to the blog post for to kind of figure out what best fits for you. But usually organizations that have about 1 or 2 staff members or a board would be a better fit for the 50,000. And those who are kind of maybe not as established, but you do still have a strong core group of volunteers and you have a mission and goals, that you would probably be a better fit for 25,000. So this is just a quick timeline. So today is our first technical assistance workshop here on April 5th. We will have another one next week on the 12th. We will have grant writing assistance sessions. I would highly recommend those so that you know what some best tips and practices and what we're looking for. Again, just to highlight, the deadline is 11:59, May 5th. And then we will let applicants know if they're made it past the first stage of review no later than May 19th. Those who are advancing to the final stage will be notified by early June, and we hope to have final funding decisions no later than late June, early July. And just to set expectations for those who are deemed to be finalists, even though the announcement is made, we do have an internal process that we follow. So actual physical check may not come for up to 8 weeks. So just so that folks are aware that there is a lag between notification and ultimately when the funds are deposited. Next slide. And so now we kind of want to open up to questions. We can also go back if you have any specific questions as well. And I'll also stop the recording if that would make you feel more comfortable.